Welcome everybody to today's panel discussion on the courage to live authentically. And for those who are joining us for the first time, welcome to New Acropolis. Some of you may already know that New Acropolis is a school of philosophy. We are present in over 60 countries, as the video we just saw indicated. And today's event is hosted by New Acropolis India. In India, we are present in Mumbai. We have a center in Colaba and also in Pune. We have a branch there, as well as centers in Bangalore as well. And at New Acropolis, we have three pillars of philosophy, culture, and volunteering. Philosophy being, as the word actually means, literally translates to the love of wisdom. And at New Acropolis, we look at philosophy from a classical perspective, philosophy as a practical philosophy, to extract wisdom from the heart of ancient civilizations across the world, to really try and extract practical lessons that are relevant also for our lives today, and to try and live in that light. The second pillar that we speak about at New Acropolis is that of culture. Culture, which we can see as the legacy in a way that humanity leaves for future generation. And in that, it captures and shares wisdom from each tradition and each civilization for the future generations to preserve as well. And the third is that of volunteering. Volunteering, which we say is as a natural expression of philosophy, or we can say philosophy in action, because if philosophy gives the direction of what is right to do, then volunteering is to act in line with that. And at New Acropolis, the entire organization worldwide is actually based completely on volunteers. So our panelists today, for example, are volunteers. Those who created the poster for the event, and some may have been in touch with you to make sure you have the link for today's event. Those are all volunteers because we see it very much as a natural expression of being a part of a school of philosophy. And with that, I'd like to introduce our speakers, our panelists today, both aspiring philosophers and members of New Acropolis. We have Rahil Mehta from New Acropolis, Colaba, Mumbai. And we have Sangeeta joining us, Sangeeta Iyer from New Acropolis, Pune. So welcome to our panelists. And also to mention to the audience as we begin, we do have a chat going on. Please do reserve that for questions and comments relating to the event. And please do throughout the event post your questions, any questions you may have there. And at the end, in the last 10 or 15 minutes, we will try to answer a few of them. Yes. So jumping immediately into our topic today of the courage to live authentically. My first question to both our panelists today is, what is authenticity? Can you tell us a little bit about how we can understand this word a little bit better? Because it's a word that we use quite often. I think it's something that all of us in some way strive for. Yet sometimes it's a quality that we tend to find elusive. And so what is authenticity? Does it look the same on all of us? Or conversely, can we say that being authentic means to stand out at any cost or to go against the grain? Rahil, if you can share your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Trisha. I think to speak about authenticity, and Trisha, when you say that it's a word that we try to understand a little bit better, we can immediately make a reference to an age-old question, something that plagues and inspires the human being. And this is a question which is, who am I? And there's a certain need that I think is innate within each one of us to know ourselves. This question, and if today's panel discussion allows us to actually expound a little bit on this question as to who am I, then I don't see how this is so different than this question of, where can I find authenticity? I think the two things are extremely interrelated. I want to say that this journey, and if as philosophers, we have, or philosophers, aspiring philosophers, as lovers of the truth, at some point, if we encountered this question, because we thought about it, we encountered this question because it occurred to us as some, maybe just as a question, maybe as a dilemma, maybe something that I want to answer, and as a quest, then I think it's really a worthwhile question to keep with us. I am not so confident in my life that I will get that I will get a complete answer to such a question, but really I treasure this question a lot. But I'm not the only one. I can say that because I know that outside of the temple of Apollo at Delphi, it says, "Know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods." Now, it seems worthwhile suddenly, doesn't it? That to know myself is also to know what I am a part of. And I think this is therefore a very, very unique and a very inviting quest as well. But to dive in a bit, maybe we can maybe we can dive in and look at our lives, and how do we encounter our lives every day. We can see that we have certain good traits. No, I mean, some of us may say that I pride in being honest. Someone efficient. Someone says that I'm industrious. Someone else saying that I'm very articulate. And we have various such virtues. Someone says that I have a good sense of judgment. But we also have a lot of flaws. We make a lot of mistakes, and this also is something that's true. I feel like to know myself, I must know myself for my virtues, and I must also know myself for my flaws. But really, the question is, what is it that unites us? I mean, what is it that's common that we have amongst all of us? It is probably common that we all have virtues, and also common that we all have flaws. Yes. But truly, what is it that unites us? And I think it's really a question worth asking. And it's a question also towards understanding this idea at all of authenticity. Because sometimes, to take this a step further, sometimes we may think that, okay, if I'm authentic, then if I made a mistake, I will own up to my mistake. Isn't it enough? And I say, maybe it's a start. Yes. But, I made this mistake. But in another instance, I made the mistake, but I was generous. I was able to show the generosity. In another instance, I was able to show some truthfulness. In another instance, I was able to let some virtue shine through. But when I made this mistake this time, what actually happened was that this virtue got blocked a bit. It's not that the virtue came from somewhere else. Yes, the virtue was always innate within me, and every so often it comes. But maybe the tendency that we have is every so often to block this virtue. And this blocking of virtues may be, and I suggest, is what we may call our faults. Someone else calls it very hard, and we may call it vices. Yes, and say, okay, I have all of these faults, but maybe these faults are nothing but blocking of the virtue. And I want to suggest that just owning up to our mistake is not the authenticity, but rather to understand, to dive in, to dig and see what virtue did I end up blocking. And when I admit to my mistake, it is to say that, okay, I blocked this virtue and that was my mistake. So I can remove this block and allow the virtue to go through. It's a completely different point of view, because otherwise I just say I admit to my mistake, but I will make this mistake again and again and again, just knowing that I have this mistake, and my identity lies in my mistake, which makes me a little bit small. But when I side with my virtue, then probably I'm able to recognize authentically who I am. And in here, I feel all as human beings, yes, we are all united in this. The falling or the vices, this happens all the time, yes. But the virtue, maybe this is truly us. And the progress that we may aspire for ourselves, whether it's a personal progress or it's a progress that we look out for each and every human being, probably this progress is just to remove all of these various flaws, to remove all of these various blocks, because probably these blocks are not really us. It's just this condition that we have that, okay, we have the virtues, we have these vices, and all of our life is one of, one of these interplays between the virtues and the vices or the flaws. Yes. But maybe the flaws is something that we may remove in order to allow the virtues to go through. And maybe in here lies the authenticity of what it means to be a human being. Now, what does it take to unblock this, or what does it take to do this? That's probably a different question. I'm sure that we have an hour. We'll talk about that soon. But I also wanted to address another part of the question that you asked. Yes, what does it mean to be authentic? Does it mean to go against the grain? Well, I don't know. Because I think that going against the grain may sometimes take a very external nature. I think the important thing is to go within. In a time when that's not so common, it may seem like going against the grain. In a time when I'm focusing on removing my flaws and working on myself and looking for the tiny bits of progress, yes, maybe it's not so common to see it, and so therefore somebody that does that may seem a little bit unrealistic. But honestly, I think the important journey towards authenticity is to go within. It is to take that dive to understand, to know who I truly are, who I truly am for my virtues. And again, I repeat, yes, it's not something new. I didn't come up with it, but I think it's the writing is literally on the wall if we are willing to look at it.
Thanks, Rahil. Sangeeta, if you can add.
Yes, as Rahil said, it's about this identity, it's about diving deeper. And this idea of the duality of identity is neither a new one nor something that's restricted to any particular culture. It's actually a universal theme and a timeless one, because myths and legends from around the world are full of this idea that there is divinity within us, what Rahil called our virtues and the better self. And it's just that we can't always see it or hear it. So let's look at some instances from mythology to inspire us. Now, the very word mythology itself, it comes from the word mythos, which means to speak of truth. So these are words rooted in truth. So while the packaging may be a story, there is an essence that's expressed which is actually relevant to all of us. It doesn't matter whether that myth is from Sumeria or it's from Mesopotamia or Egypt or Greece or India. They are universal. The messages are universal, and therefore all of us. So if we just look at the story of Hercules from the Greek mythology, Hercules was the son of Zeus, who's a god, and his mother was Alcmene, who's a mortal or a human being. So he's half man, half god. And Hera, who's Zeus's wife, she gets jealous of this union between Zeus and Alcmene, and she creates a huge disturbance. And the impact of this disturbance is that in a fit of madness, Hercules ends up killing his wife and his 3 children. And when he realizes what he's done, he's horrified. It devastates him. And in a state of extreme remorse, he wants to take his own life, until he's guided by someone to go to the oracle. Now, the oracle is someone who foretells the future, but it doesn't always give you answers that you want to hear. It doesn't make it easy for you. It's not about making you comfortable, but what it does point you to is your true destiny, something that you are meant to become. So as a result of this, as Hercules follows what the oracle has asked him to do, he ends up in front of Hera again, the one who kind of initiated all the chaos in his life, and he has to do as she demands. And she sets him 12 audacious tasks. I mean, tasks is a small word for the humongous challenges that he faces, really, for the slaying monsters and some very, very difficult circumstances that he has to go through. It's superhuman. Today we use the words Herculean effort because of that. And he decides to do this with the spirit of adventure. Now, that's where the journey of a hero begins, because after having crashed down completely to almost nothing, to rock bottom, he's able to rise up again and go forth towards what is the force that allows him to do that? It's actually this authenticity that we talk about, because it's not the barriers, not the ones that either made him plummet or the ones that made him feel miserable and guilty, but the power that allows him to say, okay, now I can really emerge as who I'm meant to be. And yes, after all those battles and trials, he is victorious. But the most important thing, I think, is not just the victory over his external circumstances, but over his inner frailties, who he becomes at the end of this journey. And I think we can take some inspiration from that, that when we are facing difficult circumstances, we don't always have to see them as negative. We don't, in fact, we can see them as opportunities to become who we're really meant to be. There's a similar story about the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Now we know the background of the Mahabharata, so I won't go into a lot of detail, but it's about these two clans that clash. And here also the Pandavas, they are half man, half god. I mean, their mother is Kunti, who's a mortal, and each of them have a divine father. So Yudhishthir has Yama, Bhim has Vayu, Arjuna has Indra, and the twins Nakul and Sahadev have the Ashwini twins as their divine father. So this theme recurs, that half man, half God, divine aspect, earthly aspect. And this is more to help us understand that there's something of that in us too. And the story of Arjun basically is that, yes, there was this entire battle planned, and the two armies are facing each other on this huge battlefield of Kurukshetra. There are chariots gleaming in the sun, and the conch blows. And in that moment, in the middle of the battlefield, Arjun's throat goes dry, his hands start shaking, and he puts down his bow in the middle of the battlefield. And he looks at Krishna and says, how can I fight my own family? So he feels this tremendous confusion, doubt, fear. And when Krishna tells him, first of all, you are eternal, and so are they, so you can't really kill anyone. And as a Kshatriya, it's your duty to fight for justice in the land, because you can't have uh, rulers who are using devious and underhand means to get what they want, because if that's the example, what is going to happen to the land? So it is a just battle, and it's your duty to fight it. And that's when Arjun rises up in a heroic way, and he goes forth, and of course we know the rest, he wins the battle. But the important thing to take from this is that it's not that heroes don't feel remorse, don't feel doubt, don't feel fear, don't feel all those things that Rahil spoke about as blocks or barriers or the outer thing that doesn't allow the light to shine through. What is it that they do beyond that? They get up and get going. And this is what we can probably take inspiration from, because what are they doing? They are ensuring that their light overpowers their darkness. Now, we also have the darkness and the light within us. So, what do we allow to shine through? Because we also have these two aspects within us. We can look at these heroes as archetypes, or the ideal version of who we can be. So if we aspire to be that, then we can follow their example. In simple ways, everything. Rahil talked about making mistakes. Yes, when we do something wrong, even if no one's noticed, when we own up to it, we feel stronger because of it. There's a sense of honor in kind of taking responsibility for what we've done and then making the effort to make things better, to set it right. So where does that value come from? That I want to take this, I own up. That comes from our authentic self. It's what pushes us beyond our limitations. In fact, there's a beautiful quote about limitations, which is that my limitations are not where I end, it's where I begin. Because I, the real I, literally begins when we break through the barrier of all those things that are blocking the light for us. So, various traditions say that we often can't see or hear this authentic voice of ours because it's very soft. The Tibetans call it the voice of the silence, the voice of the soul whispering to us, or maybe not even speaking at all, but we feel its presence. And when we are in a dilemma and are wondering what to do, it does. Somewhere we feel our conscience pricking and telling us what the right thing to do is. But that will only happen when we are able to shed who we are not and allow that authentic light to shine through. So, yes, perhaps, of course, it takes courage to break this mold of who we think we are and go beyond that.
Thanks, Sangeeta. Both Sangeeta and Rahil actually spoke about, before even speaking about authenticity, the need to really know ourselves. Who am I? Who am I truly? Because only when I know who I am more clearly, only when I can see who I am more clearly, that I can then be authentic to the self. And so maybe first we need to search for this very identity that both of you spoke about, that and to look at each choice in our daily lives as an expression of this identity, that from each choice can I gauge, as Rahil also said, did I allow the light in me to direct myself? Did the virtue direct me in this particular choice? Or did I allow the shadow to block it? And like every muscle, it's something that we need to strengthen and practice. So as Sangeeta said, we can start to hear this voice of the silence, which is not otherwise so easy to hear and therefore easy to follow. And also, I think this idea that sometimes we think of authenticity today as going against the grain. But actually, as Rahil said, it's really first a matter of going inwards and directing myself in line with this inner, deeper aspect of myself. Whether or not it goes against the grain it may or may not be, but perhaps we fall into measuring things more externally rather than internally, which is exactly where we need to search for authenticity. So, yes, Rahil, you'd like to add something?
Well, I couldn't help myself. The simplicity of it. I mean, authentically, I didn't think about it like that till I heard Sangeeta. Authentically, we're all heroes. And if we really dare to dive in, we might realize that, I mean, and what if we do? I don't know. I think it's a good thing, huh? But really, it's that, and it's not whether it's one hero or another hero so much, but much rather the heroism that lies within each one of us. That's actually what binds us. That yes, this heroic nature is the nature of the human being, but also that's the nature of the human being that we need to grasp. It's not so easy. I mean, we'll have to make that journey ourselves. That's why the hero always has a journey. So maybe.
So speaking of the heroic journey of the human being then, and Sangeeta also mentioned the need for courage. Why does authenticity require courage? Why does being authentic need courage? And if you can also share some tools that can help us discover and live in line with this inner authentic voice that both of you have spoken of. Rahil?
So what tends to happen? I think this idea of authenticity or of diving in or trying to to try and see the causes. I mean, who am I? And to see this question, sometimes we may ask, yes, what is it? Why is it so difficult? Why is it so uncommon? And why does it probably need courage? I want to hazard that it needs courage because such is a step into the unknown. It is by its character that it's a step into the unknown, meaning I don't know myself. That's why I need to know myself. The whole idea, yes, of know thyself and you will know the gods in the universe alludes to this, that is the journey. I need to know myself. And obviously, if I need to know myself, need to know means I don't know myself. And so therefore, this is necessarily a step into the unknown. Now, the nature of the unknown is that I don't know. And when I don't know, then it brings with it some fear. And therefore, to counter this fear, we probably require some courage. But at the same time, someone said that, well, I heard this at some point, and maybe you heard it also, that nothing good ever comes from staying in our comfort zone. Yes. Because really, if we say that this is the direction, that it is important for us to know ourselves, maybe it is a step into the unknown. Maybe it comes with some fears, but I think it's something that is needed to be done. But there is always this virtue or this value of intelligence, meaning how do I do this intelligently? Because just diving into the unknown with the bravado of it, yes, I can't know how the outcome is going to be. I can't have any confidence even on how my next step is going to look like. Do we have some tool? Do we have some way to make a more informed step into the unknown? And I think we do. And this, I want to say, is our life experience. This life experience, which helps us to develop some direction. To say that my life experience, my encounter with myself, the tiny ones, when I felt bad about something, but I recognized who I truly am. When I was able to overcome a tiny mistake and learn something about myself. When I was able to forget a bit of myself and think about the other, and I realized that it is possible. And in this, it's very, very gratifying. In this, it really taught me something about myself. Or we may put it in a more simple manner, it is that I learned to seek the truth in life. I learned to seek the truth in various situations that I fail, that I face. And if we have some direction, if we find ourselves solidly on some path in life, in a path of growth, in a path of movement, where there is a change that I see in myself, then I can count on this, that when I take this step into the unknown, I'm taking it in the right direction. And when I'm taking it in the right direction, of course, it will come with some adventure. That's the idea, isn't it, of the unknown? I don't know what's going to come, but what's going to come is probably going to be an adventure. Let's take, for example, I mean, some examples, yes, that we encounter every so often, that I am facing some dilemma. I have a confusion. I don't know. Sangeeta, you mentioned before that Arjun was there. Yes, in the battlefield, he had a confusion. He said, okay, what do I choose? I don't know. And at that point of time, if Krishna told him and said, Arjun, let me tell you what to do. Yes, it would have been one sentence. Very easy, and then Arjun would have gone ahead to fight the battle. But then this battle would not anymore have remained his own. He would have been doing something that was told to him by somebody to do, yes, without any meaning, without the meaning that he brought to it himself. But rather, what unfolded in that moment, or in the crucial juncture, was the Bhagavad Gita, which today serves as a guidance to all of us. It can serve to all of us, to all of humanity in that sense. Yes. And what Arjun did is he cleared that confusion with the guidance of Krishna. He cleared that confusion for himself. So now he saw the direction clearly for himself. And then after that, was there any guarantee that he will win this battle? No. But with that, he dived into the battle. And I think this is the courage that we need. But this courage is worthwhile when we have a good life experience, when we are always trying to make this effort to be authentic, to always know what is the direction where am I headed? Where is the truth in everything that we do? Conversely, something that we face every so often today is that we are impulsive, meaning we just do something. It occurs to me and I do something. Yes, it's this tendency. And it also drives today from many things. I'm going all the way from the Bhagavad Gita to what happens on our computers day in and day out, that we are able to get reams and reams of information, so that we know a lot, yes, of things, but little of each of these things. And very, very quickly, yes, we form our opinions. Very, very quickly, we come to know a lot of things. So we know what's happening all over the world. My God, all 360 degrees of the world. Yes, we know what's happening in every single corner. But what do we really know of what's happening? Probably very, very little. And sometimes I just want to suggest, yes, this is already something that you can imagine is a bit superficial, but this trap, yes, is something that we fall into. It's not only just to know what's happening in the world, but also so many people and what's happening in their lives and all of that. And I think it's something that we easily fall into this trap of wanting to know more and more and more and more, where we end up focusing so much more on the quantity. Empowered by all this knowledge, sometimes we impulsively do something. We say that, chalo, theek hai, this is my opinion on something. And probably the other person makes a counter argument, and sometimes we may just find ourselves faced with our superficiality, saying that, okay, I didn't know much about it, but I made a very emphatic statement. In this moment, do I admit that there is something wrong? Or do I now still try and say that, no, Baba, I am right, because, and I still try and make an external battle versus the inner one, where I say, okay, you know what, maybe it's my superficiality. And I want to say that the external argument that may or may not pursue in such a case is less important. But did you have that inner conversation that with this superficiality, what did I block? What did I block? This depth, yes, how do I bring such depth in my life? In that sense, yes, how do I be more authentic? To be more authentic is to dive into things, and we can't dive into everything. This is a limitation that we have. I mean, really, we have a limitation that we can't dive into everything. But we can know, and this is what's beautiful, we can know the nature of things. So prioritize, see what is important, and in that dive in, because it will teach us the nature of things. Einstein said that look to nature and you will understand everything better. Everything. Yes. He's not naive, really. I want to say first that he was to me, yes, he was a philosopher. And he said, look to nature, look to the simplicity of things, and you will learn the nature of everything. And you will know yourself, of course, in the bargain as well. We need to prioritize and go to the depth of things rather than staying on the surface. And when the tendency to be on the surface is there, let's see, okay, what is it that we're blocking? Move it aside so that we may be able to see clearly. Yes. When I act with some depth, I face my mistakes, I own up to my mistakes. Is it, is the whole idea to avoid conflict? And I want to say this, Trisha, since you asked, can we have some tips and tools? Well, we find ourselves avoiding conflict sometimes, and maybe it's a prudent thing to do, but don't avoid the inner conflict. Because the inner conflict that you have between you and yourself, because it stays for many of us much after the external conflict has either happened or not happened or whatever. Yes, the inner conflict stays with us. Allow that inner conflict to be, go to the depth of it, see the cause of it, see what is my authenticity and what did I block it with, and look at it objectively. It's nothing to feel bad. I mean, we all make a lot of mistakes. All right. So let the virtues prevail. I think this is a tip that I can offer.
Thanks, Rahil, and over to Sangeeta.
Yes, it is definitely about diving deeper, but I think for that we need to know what superficiality is. And when we talk about superficiality, we are talking about remaining on the surface of things, not really going into the depth. And unfortunately, the thing about superficiality is that's exactly the thing that will not stay. It's like the waves on the surface. They come and they break, they come and they break, and that's it. And it's exactly like that. So if we can go deeper, we're really giving ourselves a gift and doing justice in that sense. Because let's look at the ways in which superficiality limits us. For one, it affects how we do things. Like we're always saying, I am in a time crunch, I'm in a time crunch, I have so many things to do. How do I get them done within a day? And therefore, we just do them quickly to tick them off. Okay, my to do list is done. But if we are multitasking, can we really go to any depth if we're doing three things at a time? Obviously not. And this kind of thing even creeps into our interactions with people, even those who matter to us. Our conversations with them have become so quick and functional because it's all about, okay, you picked us up on your way home from work, I'm traveling for so many days, this, that, the other. Where is the depth of the relationship? It is more all on the surface. And the other aspect of superficiality is that we try and avoid certain things. We want the comfort and the easy way. So when there's something that we don't like to do, it's become almost like a default setting. Seek pleasure, avoid pain. But it is pain that made the heroes grow. It is the pain that made them rise up from a certain state to lift themselves to who they finally became. And it can be in small and simple things. For instance, if there's something that we don't like to do, but it is needed for the benefit of others, would we back away and hope that someone else steps up? Or would we try and bring some enthusiasm into it and try and do it anyway? Because when we do things for the people we love, we're able to do it with joy. So, can I bring a little bit of that enthusiasm and joy to a situation where it's not personal for me, but it is personal to my authentic self, who knows that this is what is needed to make this situation better, to make life better is a large statement, but this immediate situation. And enthusiasm also comes from this word entheos, and theos means God. So it means with God within me, with divinity within me. Like we said, we have a higher, purer, more celestial self, and we have a lower earthly self. So this is not to let the earthly self block me, but to say that I can bring that theos, that divinity, that authenticity into me and offer that. And I think more importantly, a kind of thing that we are falling into is to stop at what's familiar. That's the surface in a way as well, the superficiality, that what's familiar to me, even within ourselves. my automatic thoughts are familiar to me, what the opinions I have, the things that come to my mind automatically, the swirling emotions that are always going around in me. I know them so well, I kind of own them. I even say my anger, my fear, my dislike, my passion. Okay, it's good to have passion about something and to say that I'm so passionate about this that I want to focus, devote my life to this. But sometimes we need to be careful. Sometimes it becomes an obsession. Sometimes we get obsessed with being perfect. And often it's more about appearing perfect to others, sometimes even to ourselves. We don't even realize that in this pursuit of perfection, we are focused on the act and not even on why we are doing it. So we want to seem perfect. We don't want to, that puts us under this pressure and stressor of not messing it up and not letting the cracks show and not seeming imperfect. So sometimes we end up hiding our imperfections even from ourselves. And then where is the authenticity in that? Forget about what we show to others, but are we even facing it ourselves? That I'm not perfect in these ways, and you know what? It's okay. Because if I can bring that authenticity into it and say that this I don't know so well, or this I don't understand, it's not going to be the end of the world. People may even respect us more for having that authenticity and to be able to be honest and say, I'm not perfect. So perhaps instead of focusing on the perfection of the act, can we focus on perfecting our intention? And even if it is just, I want to do the best I can do, there's more authenticity in that than just, a perfect thing tied up with a bow. So, yes, it does take us courage to be brave and to allow ourselves to be imperfect. I mean, we have the inspiration of Socrates. Look at what he said. He was considered the wisest man in the world. And he said, all I know is I know nothing. Not because he knew nothing, but because he was so wise, he could see that there's a lot more to know beyond what he knows now. And so authenticity actually also makes us humble. So it brings courage, it brings the ability to discern who I really am and live from that self. And then I can afford to be imperfectly, uh, with the right intentions, doing the best I can.
Thanks, Sangeeta and Rahil, for some of those tips. First of all, to share the need for courage, because it takes courage to get to know, to confront, I think, to really face this deeper aspect of ourselves, like you mentioned, which is not so familiar, like any time we step into our comfort zone. And as both of you also emphasized in different ways, the need to go beyond the surface, to go beyond the superficial, which also in a way is to go against the path of least resistance, because the to stay on the surface, it is the path of least conflict, it's the path of least effort, and that we'll always really be stuck on this surface if we don't take the effort to penetrate, like Arjun, like Hercules. There would be no Bhagavad Gita if they didn't take that step, or we would not know Hercules as the hero that we know today if he didn't take that step. And to look for, as Rahil said, those points of discomfort and those points of conflict, which maybe are exactly those gateways towards authenticity, towards this deeper aspect of ourselves. And I think, Sangeeta, also the point you mentioned about our need to project perfectionism. I think, especially today with social media, it's very easy. This is what we tend to do. But what happens is we spend so much effort in painting that perfect picture of ourselves, and then painting another picture over it and another picture over it, that ultimately there are a lot of very beautiful pictures, but it lacks that depth, it lacks that realness, and it's something that we encounter between us and ourselves, and also in our interactions, like you pointed out, with other people as well. We are a little bit short on time, so I will go to the last question of our panel, and also a reminder to our audience to post questions, which we can address towards the end. So the third question for our panelists is the goal of authenticity then my own self-satisfaction, of being true to myself, or of experiencing more harmony in my life? Or is there something beyond this? Can you talk to us more about the value of authenticity in our world today? of the value of authenticity for those around us. Rahil?
Thanks, Trisha. We're short on time, so I think I need to be more authentic in what I say. More simple, maybe, more to the point. Well, so quote is usually a very nice way to be brief. And I choose this quote, which maybe many of us have heard, maybe some not, from Marcus Aurelius, who was a Stoic philosopher and a Roman emperor. And he said, what is good for the beehive is good for the bee. And he also continued to say, what is good for the bee may not be good for the beehive. The question really is this, that, what is my drive? And when I say the question is this, it's a question to ask ourselves. What is my drive to do the right thing when I don't feel like it? When it is something that I have a lot of resistance to doing that right thing because it's uncomfortable, because it's arduous, and because I don't even know what's going to come out of it. Yes, I know that it's the right direction, but I'm not confident of what's going to come out of it. And so therefore, is the risk worth it? And, I might have many such questions, dilemmas, etc., that might occur to me at the moment. At that moment, yes, but I still know what is the right thing to do. It could be, and usually I think good examples to take if we want to test such things in our lives are the small ones. A small mistake that I made, where I can easily admit to that small mistake. But if I don't, then nothing happens. Okay, what do I do? It's a simple question. Yes, it's a simple question that I can easily encounter and ask myself. When it is for me and myself, I say that, you know what? It's okay, because who's the one that's going to lose if I don't do this? It's only me. And so therefore I take a hit on myself. I martyr myself to myself and I say it doesn't matter. But the moment that we put ourselves in the service of a higher goal, meaning I am looking towards something which is a little bit bigger than me, meaning when I look to the good of the beehive, then suddenly it puts an obligation on me. It puts some obligation on me that I need to do the right thing regardless. I need to do the right thing, or I need to do what I need to do when I know that it is the right thing to do, regardless how I feel about it. And I want to say that some amazing force comes from here in my experience, because what I'm driven by is not my constraints, but much rather the need of what is truly required, what needs to be done. And driven by this, I think I'm able to bring behind it know aspects of myself that I didn't know before. I didn't know that I would be able to overcome these constraints and push forward. And now, isn't that really that knowledge, or knowing that, isn't that knowing myself a little bit better? Isn't that something that helped me as well? Isn't it good for me? Yes, it is. But how did I make it happen? By doing what is good for the beehive. And imagine where this authenticity is something that pervades our entire environment. What greater goal that we may conceive? Yes, let's say even a little bit more truthfulness in the world. If we're talking about this greater goal, why can't my tiny truthful action, yes, be in the service of this greater goal of truthfulness in the world? If I do it like that, if I see it like that, if I bring this authenticity, then by itself, by doing what I do, I'm opening a path for others. And I think I give some others something to aspire to. And when you hear the heroic stories and some examples, I'll just share one, which it's a short example of this philosopher Epictetus, who was called the freest man. He was called the freest man. Okay, Epictetus is the freest man. But his circumstance was, what? He was a slave. How can these two things coincide with each other? Well, because he was free, yes, to express his virtue. He was free in that he was able to remove these blocks that block the virtues from shining through. And this no one can take away from you. My point here, yes, is that such a story, by doing what he did, his life today inspires so many, thousands, maybe more. And why can't our tiny act of authenticity inspire others? It will. I want to say somewhere that it's a rule, it's a principle. This is how life works. And so therefore nothing worthwhile, no step worthwhile will we take for our personal self. Yes, it might be, but if the goal is towards the whole, I think really that's when it's concrete. That's when it counts. Trisha.
Thanks, Rahel. Sangeeta?
Yes, absolutely. And like Rahil said, when we are considering more than ourselves, and I think for that, there's a small thing we need to begin with, which is really huge, which is to learn not to be so dependent on others for love, approval, recognition, and everything. There are so many dependencies we have. To be authentic, we'll have to reduce some of these dependencies because then that's not really us. Okay. We sometimes we're not even aware of how many things we are dependent on. For instance, I wished my boss she didn't smile back at me. Oh my God, am I the first one to be fired? Am I next on the line? Just from a reaction. There are big ones like, okay, do my parents approve of my choice of partner or choice of career? I mean, if I'm come from a family of CEOs and I want to be a baker, an artisanal baker, and then the whole reaction would be, what, we put you through engineering and MBA and you want to cook? So that also we feel like we need approval for. There's so many times we look for recognition, encouragement from outside ourselves. So if we constantly need mirrors around us to reflect who we are, to define us, to validate us, we're never going to feel that we are enough. Whereas actually we do have that authenticity, that divinity within us, but somewhere we don't see it. Do we have a compass for our own lives? Do we have conviction that what we are choosing to do is is where we want our lives to go? Or is it just dependent on what others are saying to me? The direction of our lives, how much do we wait for others to define? A small thing like I posted something and no one's responded yet, no one's liked it yet. So has anyone seen it? Has anyone seen it? Small things like that. Or even if I have this great idea and I share it very excitedly at work and the reaction to it is very thanda, then I start thinking, oh my God, have they not got it? Have I not presented it properly? Should I explain why it's such an awesome idea? And then I go into overthinking and over talking, and people might start picking holes in some silly detail of it, whereas they're missing that it was a good idea to begin with. But there is this dependency within us where we constantly need reflection and encouragement and appreciation from outside. So where is our authentic self in all of this? It doesn't mean that we should not want to be loved or not want to be. Yes, of course, these are lovely to have, but should we depend entirely on that? Of course, our heart will jump with joy when we're in front of the person we love. We are human, we are alive, and that's the beauty of it. But does it mean that if someone doesn't react in a certain way, I crumble, I'm miserable, that's the end for me? Because actually, the only thing that I can control is what's within me, my thoughts, my feelings, my reactions, what I choose to do. Whether the other person responds to me in a certain way or not is within their control, not mine. But we tend to forget this. We depend very much on how others reflect us. The other thing, the aspect of being dependent on others to reflect us is that we feel fragile and we kind of tend to protect our ego from being hurt. But this ego is also not our real self. This is exactly the barrier that's blocking the light. I mean, when we think about it, think of a diamond. Diamonds are so precious because they shine with light. And they shine with light because they're transparent. They've been polished and polished and polished to a point where everything that is not the diamond has been removed. We can work on ourselves the same way. Polish and polish and polish the fears and anxieties away until what remains is our authentic self, the self with the light in it. Because why is it important to keep cleaning this clutter of ours, our negativity or our vices, or as we said, the lower self? Why? Because if we think of, let's say, our surface as a shell or a house, we clean our house every day, right? Why do we do that? Because it's beautiful. We've designed it with love. We filled it with things that mean something to us. But whether it's a souvenir from somewhere or some element that gives me serenity, nothing will look beautiful with a layer of dust on it. So we clean it and clean it and clean it. And if we are able to do the same with ourselves, we will really be letting go of this barrier bit by bit and revealing that beautiful authenticity which is within us. Because this, I'm not saying that we should feel bad that we are not there yet, or that, feel that, okay, all these noble virtues that the heroes have, do I really have them? I don't feel so confident. I don't feel so great. But it's about discovering them, it's about revealing them. So it's not about beating ourselves up for not being that yet, but it's about seeing where I am and taking one step up from there. So if I'm here, can I be stronger? If I'm here, can I be more generous? Step by step by step, I can build a stairway from my lower self to that authentic divine self that's within me, literally like a stairway from the earth to the stars. This is how I can reveal my divinity bit by bit, my authenticity bit by bit, more and more, day after day. And I just wanted to say that why? Why should we do this? Because when we do this, we reduce this dissonance between our two aspects, the two aspects that are pulling us in opposite directions, which we spoke about in the beginning. And like Mahatma Gandhi said, that happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. So it's up to us to create this harmony within ourselves. And this really has been, yes, there might be a gap. There might be a gap between our intentions and our actions, but can we at least aspire to be the best version of ourselves? And if we live with this intention, we are walking this journey towards authenticity. This is exactly how this journey of philosophy has been for me, bit by bit letting go of who I'm not and discovering more and more of who I really am.
Thank you, Sangeeta. I apologize to cut you off, but in the interest of time, I do want to leave room for one question at least from the audience, and we are close to 7. But thanks, both Rahil and Sangeeta, I think, have left us with some really pertinent questions. Can we really create an impact on anyone around us or anything around us if we are dependent on external circumstances, opinions, validations to act and to choose? And that we really need to develop this authenticity in order to create an impact. Otherwise, we will constantly be impacted by our surroundings and opinions of others, but we'll never really be able to be the ones to create an impact. In fact, the root word that authentic comes from authentes, which is Greek, means one who acts on his own authority. And if we are so dependent on the external, we lose our ability to sense this inner compass and therefore to navigate ourselves. So thank you for that. And one quick question from the audience. I will combine a question from 2 participants. One is Kavita, who says, how do you know what is the right thing to do? Because I can easily justify what I like to do. And the other is from Jayati, who talks about the flip side. Kavita says, how do I know what is the right thing to do? And Jayati says, sometimes we know what the right thing to do is, where we recognize it, but we're scared to accept this authentic self because it brings a lot of discomfort. So how do we navigate the two?
Well, I can, Trisha, try to respond in short. I know that we're towards time. There's something that stayed with me that my teacher told me, I think not once, but he told me a few times, and it really stayed with me, is that the how is really a futile question to ask someone. For example, if Arjuna had asked Krishna, Acha, how do I fight? Or, if the question is the how, meaning, what do I do? Yes, if it is give me the tip, then where is my journey? I feel like we need to somewhere dispel these questions of how, or rather, we need to ourselves attack these questions of how by trying to see, okay, what is the underlying principle? So, how do I know what is the right thing to do? I think for that, I need good experience of life. I need to develop some direction and some compass. I need to have an experience of seeking what is the truthful and what is not so truthful. What is it that actually endures and what is it that an opinion that's there today and it's gone tomorrow? If I'm able to do some such engagement with the principles, then probably I'll be able to understand a little bit better what is the right thing to do. Otherwise, it's really hard. Just faced with 2 things, yes, and not a very good judgment, it's very difficult to decide. But in such, faced with something like this, it should inspire or aspire that spur us on to say, okay, I need to develop my judgment. That's what I actually need to do. That's the main thing. That is the next step. That is the first step to take. On another count, I think what Jayati says, yes, sometimes we are scared of accepting our authentic self. And how do we go beyond fear and discomfort? And I think, Jayati, the important thing to go beyond fear and discomfort, again, is the same thing, is to throw the light of truth on the fear and discomfort. And then if what you do is worthwhile, if what you do is needed, if what you do is for the whole, and then if it requires, if it requires you to encounter your fear, then in that encounter with fear, you're only going to recognize that you're stronger than you thought you are. And in encountering that discomfort, yes, you will probably recognize yourself on the other side and discussing it was not so bad after all. But for that, really, we need to be able to shine the light of truth, of the right thing, of the bigger picture on the problem that we have at hand, or the situation that we have at hand, or the dilemma that we have at hand. I hope throws some light on that question.
Thanks, Rahil. Sangeeta, you want to add something?
Just a quick thing that, Jayati, discomfort is a good sign. It is exactly where the transformation can happen from that darkness to the light of authenticity that we've been talking about, because that's what makes you begin the battle and the journey. So, good luck.
Thanks, Sangeeta. I wish we had time to answer more questions. I think there are a lot of interesting questions here on this forum, and an interesting discussion also that's been parallelly happening relating to the comments from the speakers. Just to conclude and to summarize, I think I'll go back to Plato's quote, "Man, you are God, but you forgot." This concept that both Sangeeta and Rahil referred to throughout today's discussion, that that within us there is this divinity, but we've forgotten it with all these layers that we have accumulated over the years. We've forgotten, and that maybe our purpose in this life is to discover this authentic, this divine aspect within us, and this very pursuit of truth, of discovering our authentic selves, as Sangeeta also mentioned at the end of the last question, is very much the path of philosophy, is very much the path of living philosophy, of practically applying philosophy, where one can really take from universal timeless wisdom and try to live our lives in accordance with it, to try to use the light of this truth and wisdom to light our paths in that sense. So thank you to everyone on behalf of New Acropolis. I will ask Ubay to share our screen, because I would like to take a minute to speak about our upcoming Living Philosophy course. As the course name actually indicates, this is our flagship course starting in November, with a free trial on Wednesday, November 18th. At 7:30 p.m. online, and the course beginning the following Wednesday, the 25th. It's a 16-week course, once a week for 1.5 hours. And the course essentially is an introduction to practical philosophy, of extracting practical wisdom from ancient traditions, from India, from Egypt, from Greece, from China, from Tibet, to understand exactly what we spoke about today. How can I live in line with them? What practical principles that were relevant then and are still relevant now, because it relates to a more eternal aspect of us? How can we put them into practice in our lives today? So Ubay will also be posting details about the course and our contact information as well in the chat. So if any of you are interested, please do reach out to us. And thank you to our panelists for sharing some inspiration and tools on how we can dare to live more authentically. And thank you for our audience. We look forward to seeing you at our upcoming public events.